Good morning.
Hi.
Hello, it's Books at Lunchtime, and this is Em, and I'm Tracy, and Em has contacted me to let me know that we've got another reader question.
We have got another reader question, and this makes us feel all proper and booksellerish, so send them in, please do. The question today is, I've just seen a segment on TV about the environmental movement about rewilding. I'm really interested in this. Are there any books you can recommend? Well, yes, luckily there are. Rewilding, if you're not entirely familiar, is this idea, this alternative idea of letting nature reclaim the landscape, and it's become quite popular at the moment. A lot of stuff in the press about it, from introducing beavers back in Devon to other more high-profile attempts to try this in the UK and abroad. So we have managed to find some. I'm going to start off with, I think, possibly the most high-profile book about this, which is not new. I think it was published in 2018, and it's called Rewilding by Isabella Tree. And this is an extraordinary story of an estate in Sussex that Isabella Tree and her husband, who own and run the estate, in the early 2000s, I think it was, late 90s, early 2000s, took the very difficult decision to rewild it. So they let it go back to nature. And it's about what happened over the subsequent 20 years. And it's really extraordinary. It's packed full of information and all this sort of stuff that you never thought you wanted to know about. I found myself reading about the benefits of worms and getting into the issues around grain and butter mountains and the merits of various different sorts of cattle and the benefits they have on the landscape. And there is a lot of information in there. It's quite a long book, but she writes extremely well. It's very easy to read. And it's the sort of book you probably would want to go back to and just refresh your memory if it's the subject that interests you. And the front cover you can see here is the turtle dove, which after a period of being completely absent from the landscape at Kett in Sussex, where they live, they have had an increased number of sightings there. So it's a really inspiring, thought-provoking book. And as I said, it's one of the more well-known ones about the rewilding movement. So that would be, if you've not read this is a really great place to start. And it's in paperback, as you can see at the minute, and it's a £9.99 paperback. So
excellent.
that's
that really is an excellent place to start because it's inspired so many people. And she now does workshops on the land, and apparently you have to book a year ahead to go in to learn from her. And they also have camping, apparently. So this isn't a plug for them, but it's just really exciting that so many people have really embraced it and are wanting to find out more about what they can do on their own. We have a book of similar title, which I'm just going to mention briefly, which is more of the scientific side. So Rewilding is written by scientists. This is putting the scientific insight, practical innovations, and looking at the innovative ecological processes. So it's pretty academic, but actually it's interesting to pair with the real life experience, to have the science alongside. So that is one for someone who might want to look more critically at what's going on. And we also have going from rewilding to rewild yourself, which is a lovely cover. And this is by Simon Barnes, who does write for readers, not for scientists. And this is broken up into 23 spellbinding ways to make nature more visible. So it's something that you can dip in and out of. And I love the start because the first bit, which he calls initiation, quotes from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. So he's really leaning into the idea of going from one world into another. And it quotes, "And so Lucy found herself walking through the wood, arm in arm, with this strange creature as if they had known one another all their lives." And that's the ambition, isn't it? So it's got some nice illustrations, and it's not very long. So for someone who is interested in the topic but doesn't necessarily have the stamina to read a long book or get really deep into it, I think this is a really nice option.
What about for children, Tracy? Do we have anything there that's more, because I know a lot, this whole subject, conservation and preservation is something that a lot of children get excited about. Do we have anything that might be something you could share with your kids?
So I'll pop across in a second to see what we've got specifically for children. This is designed for, well, there are 2 books here that are designed for selling, for sharing with children. A couple of years ago, this came out, this massive book, Lost Words. Now, this was in my catalogues as a children's book. It's big, but I found it more to be a book for adults to share with children. And so this is Jackie Morris and Robert Macfarlane went through the alphabet and thought about the letters. So they've gone through the alphabet and they've thought about things in nature that modern children might not necessarily be familiar with. So there's conquer. And so Robert Macfarlane has written an acrostic poem based on the word conquer. And then Jackie Morris has done the painting. Here we have a double spread painting. So it would be a lovely one for sitting and sharing on a mucky evening where you can't get outside. Just the feather. Lots to talk about. So that's a huge book of things that children might not be familiar with, but they kind of took that feedback, and a couple of years later they've done an actual child-sized book, The Lost Spells, and this covers topics that the children are going to be familiar with, like dandelions and oaks. So there's an owl, that's probably off the cover. Same format with the poem, but with lots more pictures and in the child size. So that is another gifty one to share between an adult and a child. If you're just thinking about your children and the importance of getting them outside, we have Last Child in the Woods and Wild Child. So they both take similar topics. This one's a classic. It's been around for a number of years, about the importance of a free-range childhood. So climbing trees, running through piles of leaves. I read this when my 2 were very, very young, and it's just about how we are more complete if we are able to spend time being a bit feral, actually, with nature. And this, similarly, we're hoping to have Patrick Barkham was supposed to come this in the summer and do a talk about this, but we all know what happened last summer, which is why we're here now. And so he wasn't able to talk to us about Wild Child, but it's again about getting to know the nature in your own neighborhood and getting the benefit of spending time in it. And this follows his own experience of being a parent and making sure that his children are outside and working in forest schools as well. So this is a fairly new one out as well.
Oh, they're lovely.
Yeah, it's really good. Just bear with me a second. Right, sorry, thanks for bearing with me. I didn't think that it was right to carry on this conversation unless we actually talked about some books that are designed for the youngest of readers and book users even, to make sure that they can have their own experience. So I've got Go Wild on the River and Go Wild at the Seaside, and you had personal experience of these books, don't you?
We do have personal experience of those. So my eldest is 7 and he's completely a feral child. Well, he's not feral, but he's happiest when he's up a tree or down a ditch. And those books, I find this series tucked down the side of his bed. He keeps them at night for things to do. So they're published. Are they all? They're all National Trust affiliated.
Yeah.
And it's just full of ideas for activities, things that maybe we might be familiar with. So how to do, you know, poo sticks, and how, you know, ways to build dens and stuff to look for when you're outside. And it's, you know, things to look at the seaside. And it's almost like one of those, I don't know if you remember those I Spy books. I think they still make them. I remember the car journeys, but it's almost like that. It's like, can you check off these things that you might like to have a go at doing? And as it's I think where it becomes really useful is a jumping off point for exploration. So they are really fun. And
there's a lot of practical in here, like how to tie certain knots and what you might use on them, but also how to cross a river, or which stones to step on, which not to. So that's survival.
We can all learn a lot from this.
Yes, we can all learn from that. And there's a survival tip about making sure you know what lies downstream. I love this, which is how to measure the quality of the water. So a real experiment that actually is a first step toward the science of ecology. And so it's got a code here of what you get, how to measure it. And there are, what else? How to measure how fast a river is flowing, how to measure its depth. So actually, I never had anything like this. I might need this myself. And then there's one more that I don't have here, which you have.
I do. Now, the other one is this is a really useful series for kids who are really starting to get into identification, but don't want a massively cumbersome book about identifying birds. And actually for adults that don't want a massively cumbersome book about identifying birds, this is quite a slim little version. Again, it's National Trust, published by Nosy Crow, who we love because they're a fabulous children's publisher. And it goes through more than 100 different birds with just enough information for kids to feel they're finding out something interesting about it. So they also talk, which is really useful, what they sound like. So for example, we might learn that the kingfisher makes a sharp, shrill chee, and a nightjar makes a vibrant cooick in flight, and a purring song, sometimes for up to 5 minutes without a break, which makes me think he might be my spiritual twin. So it's a really lovely book. At the front, there's a little key here about how to identify, about information about how the books are labeled, habitats, ecology, and it comes with a nice little, like all scientific books, with a nice little elastic thing to find your place.
That's brilliant. And, you know, it reminds me, as I say so many times when I'm talking to people about cookery books, that it's okay to go with a kid's book, because actually they take all the pretense out and they just talk in intelligent basics. And to have a book like that, or any of these, which is just going to give you what you need to know and not be trying to show off at all, is actually really refreshing, and you can get through that. Yeah. So, and if you learned everything in there, gosh, wouldn't you know a lot?
Yeah, exactly. That's 100, well, it'll be 100 more bird songs than I know right now. I'm dreadful at that. And they're priced as a children's book, which is great.
Yeah,
so they're also, right, you know, quite an affordable little thing. And I think if you had large coat pockets, you could even fit it in a coat pocket if you're going out.
Yeah, excellent. Some of them seem to be $6.99 and some are $7.99. So yeah, we keep these in stock, and we of course can order them in. So well, thank you for joining me and bringing us that reader question again. I'm sure that will be of use to an awful lot of people, and I've loved going through these because I don't always pause in that section.
Right. No, well, I wouldn't either usually, but we always say this, but there's so much out there right now, and this is an area where, you know, we see quite a lot of things being published, so it's nice to keep a little bit up to date.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, thank you again for joining me, and we, as always, can order any of these books. Just give us a ring on 01953 603 663. See you soon. Bye.